What's up, guys? Hope you had a good week. Just another update from the farm here, and been a really busy week. We've managed to get our broilers into the new brooder. Layers are settling in well, so here's a little look at what's been happening at the farm over the week. Got myself a new beehive. Now I typically use wooden hives and typically make my own wooden hives, but this is a polystyrene hive, and I'm not that keen on using polystyrene for kind of ecological reasons, but my problem is a lot of my apiaries are hard to get to. Got to carry in the boxes of bees, and none of my family or friends are that keen in helping me carry boxes of bees. So a fellow beekeeper was telling me that he uses polystyrene hives for that reason, that they're lighter, they're easier to handle. So I've got this and I'm going to give it a go to see what it's like. Also, I'm really busy at the moment, I don't really have much time, and I didn't have any time over the winter for making bee boxes, so I'm going to give this a go and see. I also have melted down this week some wax. I didn't record the process, but the next time I'm doing it, so every time I'm doing hive inspections, I will clean off any burr comb or any excess wax. I put it in the bucket, and then when the bucket gets pretty full, I melt it down. So this is just roughly clean. This will have to go through a few more filtering processes, so I just do this as I go along through the year, and then at the end of the year I'll take all these and I'll clean them up proper. But that's another beautiful thing the bees give us, beeswax. It's just an amazing material, so good for your health, for making lip balms or rubs or anything like that there. So hopefully I'll get some bees now. By the way, there's no bees in this box, it's empty. That I'll get some bees into it now in a few weeks. Swarming season's going to be coming on us soon, so I've no doubt there'll be plenty of bees to go around. I'm just in the polytunnel here, and I've just finished my new brooder. I'll flip this around and show you what it's like. It's not ideal to put your brooder in a polytunnel. It's hard to manage, but I've got limited resources here at the farm. You know, I'm starting this farm from scratch, so it's the best space I have available this year, so I'm going to make it work. The biggest concern with having your brooder inside a polytunnel is that it might get too hot. Now we're pretty lucky, the weather's turning cold. I've got a fan there if I need to, and if the weather got really hot, I do have chicken tractors that I can move the birds outside in. So I have to be a lot more observant with temperatures just to make sure everything's fine, but I'm confident I can make it work. Got my heat lamps. It's easy to keep them warm, but if it gets too hot in here during the day, we turn on the fan. That keeps them cool. Temperatures around here, it's given it quite overcast for the next 2 weeks, I think, in the long-term forecast. So I just use a thermometer to spot check them, and you can see there too I have another thermometer for the ambient temperature. Here we keep, these boots are only used for going into the brooder so that we don't take any disease in with us. And a clever little bit, I've put this grate on here so my 2-year-old niece can come up and doesn't have to be lifted up to see the birds. I like to keep high sides on my brooder. You don't need them to be this high, but I like it more to keep anything out as opposed to like 2 foot. We'll probably keep the birds in, maybe 3 foot tops, but I like nice high sides just to keep them nice and safe. Here we keep our wood chips. So this is just pines, wood shavings, and this is the key to managing healthy broilers, I believe. These birds, they're going to be 2 weeks old tomorrow, so now they're really starting, they eat a lot, they drink a lot, so they poo a lot. So I'll typically put in maybe 4 to 5 of those buckets most days now to keep the nitrogen locked down, so there's no smell at all in here. You can't smell these birds at all, and that's a good sign of happy, healthy birds. In the brooder, there's a few things that we need to pay attention to ensure that the birds stay happy and healthy. The first thing, like I talked about, is the temperature. So these birds are on a controlled plan to take them from the heat of the incubator, which would have been around 36 degrees, to where we can put them outside in the field, and the typical daytime temperatures here now is about 14 degrees, and nighttime temperatures about 7. So we want to harden them off effectively, and we use these lights. And what we do is we start with the lights down low, and then we slowly work them up, and that way the birds get accustomed to colder and colder temperatures. So they're on a plan that we regulate, and we check the temperatures regularly. We check the ambient temperature of the brooder, and we also spot check
on the bird's back to make sure that they're at the required temperature. That ensures that we have low mortality rate and the birds are happy. The other thing, like I talked to you about already, is the bedding is really important, that you just keep topping up with the wood chips. Like this is deep, sorry guy, there's at least 4 or 5 inches of wood chip here, and as the summer goes on and the batches of birds go on, this is going to build up and up. And that's another benefit to having the high sides, is we can build up the bedding and we create this really good living nappy for the birds. That's a big player in keeping them healthy and happy. Another important aspect to think about is feeder space. So you have to have enough feeder space for all the birds, and the easiest way to figure that out is when you feed the birds, you need to observe them and make sure everybody's got a spot to eat. Now, we're still on our small troughs here, but we will change over. I'll be using bigger troughs. I think I have some here. So these, we move them over to these troughs here, and that increases our feeder space, because as the birds get bigger, they require more space. And we are moving over to the bigger troughs, we change from a crumb feed to a pelleted feed. It's just easier for the birds to pick up once they get big enough to handle the crumb. Our waters are changed regularly. We change our waters, we inspect the brooder and feed 4 times a day, and our waters get cleaned and changed with that. And it's all these little things that can lead to a nice, happy, healthy brooder. We've lost 3 birds in this batch, which is about just over 2%, which is very good for me on our first batch. And as I say, I expect that to go down as we carry on. So these birds are starting to feather out. You can see their little wing feathers are starting to change. Sorry, little guy. And they're going to start to lose their yellow down and their feather out. And the problem is, you have to remember, these birds are only 2 weeks old, so we're going to be taking them out to the pasture. They're in here for 1 more week, and then we're getting them out onto the pasture. And you can see they're moving around and they're picking. These birds are due to be fed in about a half an hour, so they're quite hungry now, and they're going around and they're looking for stuff. And this is basically training them for when we get them out into the field. Now it's completely natural instinct for birds to go around and peck around. You can see how even though these birds have been selectively bred to really put on weight for the industry, they still got all their instincts of a bird. They want to go around, they want to peck, they want to dig. And so this is all training for when they go out onto the grass in a week's time. They'll be able to get bugs, eat grass, and this feed plan that we're on really enables them to do that, because we stagger our feeds. It means they go hungry in between, and they go and they look around. It gets them agile, and it really, we find here, really works well. That's a few of the key things to watch out for in the brooder. Now, I'm really happy with this setup. I think it's going to work really well this year, and I can't wait to get some of these guys out on the grass. I'm just getting geared up for the next project I got to get stuck into. The polytunnel's ready to go, so I've been setting up a little propagation area you can see in the back corner, but that's not high priority at the minute. I got to make some more Salton style chicken pens, so I've got all the material here behind me, and if we go outside, and check, I think I have a Salton style pen out here. So yeah, I can't flip it around in this camera, but you can see we've got a load of compost delivered. Right there is a Salton style pen, so they're the pens that the chicks from the brooder are going to go into. They're 4 meters by 3 meters. I've got to make 3 more of them. That's going to keep me busy for the next probably 2 to 3 days, and then I've got to move on to the project after that, and the one after that, and the one after that. But really happy with how things are going so far. This little apple tree is starting to come into flower nicely. You can see these top guys are opened up ready. We'll get them pollinated with the bees, and this whole line is doing well. You can see up there, these ones are starting to flower nicely too. Hopefully we'll get some nice juicy apples here. Here's hoping. I'm just down here with the piggies. They're getting their breakfast. Just want to show you quickly how we run our pigs here, what kind of setup we have. This is my second year doing pigs, so I've fine-tuned it a little bit. I'll just give you a look. I'm using this, this is wild boar netting, and I think it's just the business.
at 50-meter length netting. They keep the net nice and high off the ground. It's about 6 inches from the ground up, so I'm not really earthing out anywhere. It's blue and white, so the pigs seem to see it well. I was last year I used these plastic posts and poly nylon cord, and it was just a nightmare for moving. Used to take me maybe an hour to move them. I had to put on 2 to 3 strands of wire. I can move the pig paddock now in about 20 minutes tops. So this runs all the way around them. It's cheap, well, relatively cheap. They're about €100 for a 50-meter length. I use 4 of them to keep my pigs in. So it's like mobile, completely mobile. Can move it anywhere I want. Take it with me. So I think it's worth the money there and the time it saves me. I've trained these girls onto the nippler. I've got a water reservoir up on the hill there, and just trained these pigs. When they weren't used to a nippler, so I just put some molasses on this. I trained them when they were still inside. Put some molasses around the nippler and they figure out pretty quick. The other thing that we use is their little house that moves around with them. So this is their little house. I find that they use this when they're small. When they get up to maybe like 60-70 kilos, they just don't bother with it anymore. They sleep outside. They've got there's a little slatted floor to keep them up off the ground in case it's wet, and some straw. But I can drag it along myself, or I can hook it onto the quad and pull it along. But I find it handy. But as I said, in another maybe month, they probably won't bother using it. They'll just pick a nice bush or something like that there to lie in underneath, and that'll be them happy for the night. It's 9:35 now. The Eggmobile is scheduled to close at 9:30, so it's pretty dusky here, but you can see the door's already closed. We'll just do a quick look in underneath. It's difficult for you to see there, but everybody's inside. Let's see, everybody happy in here. So I'll just flick the light on. Oh, hello guys. 1, 2, 3 guys not roosting, but everybody else is up in the roost. Nest box is closed, door closed, everybody's sleeping. I'd say that's a good setup. Having automated my Eggmobiles it's made a big difference just in me being able to manage the whole farm on my own. It's like having a second person with me in the morning, so that was a really smart investment, and it wasn't that expensive for me to do that. It took me a bit of time to do the research, but other than that, it's really paying for itself now in the fact that the birds are looked after. You know, it's a real safeguard for the birds, and makes me happy, and I sleep at night now too. It's a pretty cool sky this morning, but I think a red sky in the morning isn't a good sign for the weather. And the weather's set to change by the looks of it. The chickens are just coming out. They let themselves out this morning. You can see them out foraging. I've got to go over and move. It's difficult to see, but Eggmobile 1 is just there. I've got to move it along. Just got the layers out this morning, and I just moved the Eggmobile, so I've got to get them some feed. These girls are hungry. He's liking the new grass. I'm just down checking out the feeders. Hopefully the weather will be nice today. It's given the weather to change, but a bit of rain will help too. Birds are doing really well. I'm just going around, staying the fence. I like to have my fence taut all the way around, just in case the birds put any pressure on it. Sometimes when they see you coming for feed or that, they can all push on the fence. So I like to keep it nice and taut, and just looks nice as well, and it keeps it nice. I go around and anywhere, I use a lot of pins. I make sure it's well pinned down all along the bottom, just in case the fox or anything comes along, or any hen that wants to sneak out. These girls are loving the grass. As you can see, I've just finished moving the egg mobile, so I've got to recenter the nest boxes. We're way off the mark, so it's as simple as this here. We run it, everything comes into line. There we go, a little too much. Now there'll be no broken eggs today. Good job. Some of the hens, starting to get a few eggs. Some of the hens coming in. I don't see any laying yet. It's a little early yet. We'll come back later and check them. For all you guys that have mobile chicken coops, Ridgedale designs, or whatever you're designing, you're using a grit feeder similar to this. So this is just our oyster grit feeder, and here we've got, this is our oyster grit. So this is our free choice calcium. So this is always full, and if the birds are feeling like they're low in calcium, they just come and take some grit. Now this is just very cheap and simple. It's a 4-inch sewer pipe with a, what would be an elbow, a 45-degree elbow going into it. And I did find that the grit would float with the elbow just the way it is. The birds would come along and peck it, and the grit would come out and the ground would be covered with grit. But if you can look in here, sorry my shadow's in the way, you can see I've dropped a pipe inside and I've just screwed it on with 2 screws here. And I can basically determine at what level the grit's going to settle by raising and lowering that there. And it just saves you the birds sprinkling grit all over your pasture and keeps it in the feeder. Also a good trick is to, because we're so wet in Ireland, this is an end cap on the bottom, but I drill holes in it to let the water out. So in case any water blows in here, it just goes out the bottom. And very simple, cheap solution, and it ensures that the birds have all got their calcium needs met. And that means that our eggs are rock hard, perfect eggshells. A lot of our customers comment on how much difference our eggshells are to what would be shop bought eggshells, that you've got to really give them a good bang to crack them, and that's because all our birds' calcium needs are met. We use oyster shell because the oyster shell is particularly good at slowly dissolving as it goes through the bird's digestive system, and that really gives them a benefit. Our hens are starting to come into lay. We're up over 10% on eggs, and you can see as they start with these, they're relatively small eggs. They're about 45 grams or so, so they're about 2/3 the weight of a normal egg, and it takes them about 2 to 3 weeks to get up to standard. But you can see I've here, like this one's laid a big egg, but I'll pretty much guarantee that it's 2 yolks in there. And what that is the hens are just becoming sexually mature, and basically the reproduction system has released 2 eggs, or 2 yolks effectively, from the ovaries, and then that combines them. If I just crack this one open, when we see this, we'll lift it up. It's difficult to see inside, but there's 2 yolks in there. If I can show you, there's a yolk in there and there's a yolk in the front. So that's just showing that the hens aren't sexually mature yet, but they get into the hang of it, laying eggs, and the eggs start to get bigger. But yeah, it's pretty cool, and that's where double yolks come from. Typically once the hens settle into their lay, they'll rarely get a double yolk. So, but for the first maybe month or so of their laying, you tend to get a lot of double yolk eggs. That's where they come from. This is the first chicken tractor that I ever made when I was experimenting with broiler chicks, and I've got a few guys inside. We'll go and take a look at them. In behind me here, there's 5 chicks that we've picked out. Now these chicks get picked out of the main flock because we've got 600 laying hens. We got them delivered 3 weeks ago, and they've come from a grower, and now that grower, in the batch that our hens came from, that was a batch of 20,000 day old chicks that grower grew out to be laying hens. So when you've got that many birds, sometimes you're not going to have birds that are 100% perfect in every way, and what happens is birds are hierarchical. So particularly chickens, and this breed of chicken particularly, there's a pecking order, where the saying comes from. So the bigger birds like to let everybody else know that they're the boss, and if you're the smaller birds, that can be a problem. So these are some of the smaller birds that I've picked off, and the reason why I take them out from the flock is, if I leave them in there, they're never going to get a chance. They're never going to get access to feed. You know, they'll be just bullied away all the time.
So I pick these guys out, I keep a watch when I'm feeding, and I just instinctively know to look at a hen that isn't, you know, doing its fullest. So I take them out and I put them in here where they've access to feed, so it's going to give them the best chance possible, because I'm trying to give these the best chance to come into lay. Some of these might never come into lay, they might be genetically just, they didn't win the genetic lottery. So if they don't come into lay, they won't go to waste. Nothing on the farm goes to waste, no nutrients will be wasted. We will probably process them and make stock for ourselves, make bone broth. If they do come into lay, I'll reintroduce them back into the flock. They'll be much bigger then. I've just weighed my layers today to kind of get a feel for how they're developing on the farm. And it's one thing about using the type of birds we use come from the industry. They're industry laying hens, so they're bred for the industry. And the one benefit of that is there's a lot of data collected by the industry on what weights they should be, what performance they should be at. And typically my birds are 19 weeks old now. They should be around 1.6 kilos in live weight, and I've just done an average weight on my birds this morning and they're coming in at about 1.7, so they've done really well over the last 3 weeks. I weigh them every week and they've really grown out well, which is telling me they've taken well to the farm. So really happy with that. And it's, you know, we always talk about the negative aspects of the industry and the egg industry, but there is one benefit, is there's a lot of data collected on them. And it's the same for the feed. There's a lot of data collected on the feed, the balance to feed them and how much to feed them. So there is some benefits as well of working with the egg industry. And that brings in the end of the week. It's been pretty busy. I'm going to carry on with the chicken tractors and get them finished off. But I've got some really exciting coming next week, so stay tuned. Something really innovative, particularly for people that like pastured layers. So if you want to get into pastured layers, or if you run an egg mobile, definitely tune in next week. I've got a real innovation coming for that. And if you like what you're seeing, please subscribe and like the video. That'll tell me that you are liking this, and I'll keep up with content. So that's it for this week. Have a good week, and I'll see you next week. Bye guys.